Fact number 1. The deadly mask of white lead. Imagine a cold, stone hall where the air is saturated with the sharp, acrid scent of vinegar and a lingering metallic aftertaste. A noble lady bows over her looking glass, carefully applying the infamous Venetian Ceruse to her features. This is a dense mixture of lead, a toxic concoction that transforms the skin into flawless porcelain, masking the scars of smallpox and the weariness of the soul. Yet behind this radiant glow lurks a profound horror. The lead slowly leaches through the pores, poisoning the very blood and inducing a creeping paralysis of the muscles. Over time, the skin turns ashen and withered, forcing the wearer to apply an even thicker layer of the very poison that destroys her. This is no mere cosmetic. It is a slow, deliberate act of suicide, all for the sake of a single admiring glance in the grand ballroom. Every stroke of the brush brings her one step closer to the grave, yet in this frigid, superficial world, a ghostly pallor is valued more than life itself. Fact number 2. The high forehead and plucked eyelashes. The beauty standards of that era demanded a face that resembled a blank canvas or the countenance of an extraterrestrial being. A high, expansive forehead was considered a mark of superior intelligence and purity. Thus, women ruthlessly plucked their hair, shifting the hairline back almost to the crown of the head. Imagine that sound, the rhythmic, metallic click of the tweezers, and feel the searing, stinging pain as every single hair is forced from its root. But the torture did not end there. To make their gaze appear as open and defenseless as possible, young women completely removed their eyelashes and eyebrows. The face became a motionless mask, upon which no emotion could be read, only a cold, alienated majesty that teetered on the edge of madness. Fact number 3. Belladonna and the gaze of the abyss. The name of this plant sounds like a melody, beautiful lady. Yet behind this sweet sound hides a deadly nightshade. Medieval fashionistas would drop the juice of the belladonna directly into their eyes, forcing their pupils to dilate to an incredible, haunting size. This created a languid, dewy gaze that was heralded as the very pinnacle of allure. However, the hidden price of such beauty was utterly unbearable. The sensation of grit beneath the eyelids, an agonizing burning, and a heart hammering against the ribs like a cornered beast trapped in a cage. Slowly, the world around them began to dissolve into a formless haze, and every familiar object lost its sharp definition. Countless women paid for that bewitching gaze with total blindness, descending forever into a profound darkness they had willingly chosen for themselves. Fact number 4. Bloody freshness and leeches. In place of modern rouge, women utilized methods so gruesome they would make one's blood run cold. If the skin appeared too naturally rosy, a trait viewed as a sign of common low-born origins, leeches were applied directly to the face. Feel that cold, slimy touch upon your own cheeks. These parasites slowly drain the lifeblood, rendering the woman deathly pale and appearing perpetually fragile. If, conversely, a healthy fever look was desired, girls rubbed their skin raw with coarse cloth or irritated it with stinging juices of searing plants. Every smile on such a face echoed with pain. But in a society where status was appearance, personal comfort meant absolutely nothing. Fact 5. The poulaines and the dance on tiptoes. The fashion of that era forced people not only to suffer, but to look utterly absurd. Shoes with impossibly long pointed toes, called poulaines, became a true curse. With tips reaching 60 centimeters, a simple walk turned into a perilous ordeal. Can you hear the leather tips scraping the stones? To avoid falling, they stuffed the toes with horsehair or chained them to their knees. It was a walk of half-bent shadows, where every step required an act of will. The church dubbed them devil's claws. Fact 6. Hellish hair bleaching. Golden hair signaled an angelic nature, yet the path required torture. Noble ladies sat for hours in scorching sun. Experienced the suffocating stench of rotten eggs rising from your scalp as the relentless sun cooks the chemical sulfur mixture directly on your skin. The caustic lye mercilessly scorched the delicate flesh, leaving behind agonizing blisters and open, festering wounds that refused to heal for weeks on end. Every single golden strand was bought with excruciating agony and the permanent risk of baldness, as chemical fires annihilated the hair follicles to their very core. Fact 7. Mouseskin eyebrows and resin glue. As the obsession with expansive foreheads forced women to pluck every single hair, irreparable mistakes occurred that were impossible to conceal. To salvage their countenances, medieval beauties donned false eyebrows fashioned from the raw skins of field mice. Imagine that faint, musky scent of rodent fur lingering just above your eyes. These thin strips of vermin fur were fastened with a dense, resinous adhesive that constricted the skin and triggered agonizing inflammation. In the sweltering heat of the dance, the glue would liquefy, and the mouse-skin brow would begin its slow descent down the cheek, casting the lady as an object of ridicule, or a target for accusations of witchcraft. Fact 18. The heavy majesty of the hennin. Those iconic conical hats from fairy tales were, in reality, instruments of agonizing torture for the neck. A hennin could reach heights of up to 1 meter, exerting a truly staggering and constant pressure upon the wearer's spine. Imagine that heavy fabric, stretched taut over a rigid frame of wire or whalebone, dragging the head backward with every single movement. To prevent this structure from toppling, it was anchored to the hair, which was bound so tightly that the skin on the forehead was stretched beyond human endurance. This resulted in chronic headaches and premature balding. Women were forced to stoop while passing through doorways while keeping their backs unnaturally, painfully straight, transforming every single step into a strained dance of survival amidst the cold and unforgiving stone walls of the castle. Fact 9. Mercurial purity and tremors. Freckles and sunspots were loathed as marks of the peasantry. Thus, alchemy's most potent weapon was deployed: mercury. Noble ladies massaged the shimmering metal into their skin, delighting in how swiftly any perceived imperfections vanished under the toxic silver sheen. But behind that clean skin lurked an invisible killer. Mercury accumulated in the body, triggering uncontrollable tremors, a sharp metallic taste, and a slow descent into madness. Feel that cold metallic stillness spreading through your limbs while the poison silently and systematically dismantles your mind from within. Beauty became a final mask, concealing a shattered nervous system and a rapid, lonely end in a sickbed, taken by a mysterious and nameless plague. Fact number 10. The bloody diet in vinegar. To achieve an ideal of extreme thinness and translucent skin, girls endured diets bordering on total starvation. Yet the most harrowing practice was drinking wine vinegar on an empty stomach, searing the esophagus and eroding the stomach walls to destroy all appetite. This rendered the complexion not just pale, but spectral, almost crystalline. The eyes grew hollow, and the cheekbones became as dangerously sharp as blades. This was the visage of a living martyr, an aesthetic of divine suffering that was profoundly revered within the structures of a deeply religious society. Women deliberately ravaged their own internal organs to appear as ethereal creatures detached from this mortal coil, though in truth, they were merely perishing slowly from sheer exhaustion. Fact 11. The whalebone cage. Imagine a reality where you are physically incapable of drawing a single, full breath of air. Every slight expansion of the ribcage is cut short by a stabbing, sharp agony. This was the suffocating reality of the medieval corset, known in its time as, quote, the stays. They were meticulously crafted from inflexible whalebone, or even unforgiving iron plates that bit deeply into the wearer's flesh. Feel the visceral groan of fabric creaking under immense tension as the maids haul the lacing to its absolute, agonizing breaking point. Internal organs were displaced, ribs permanently deformed, and the lungs were forced to function at a mere fraction of their capacity. Women frequently collapsed mid-conversation, yet this was hailed as a sign of noble sensibility rather than a desperate signal that the body was literally pleading for help. Beneath a rigid armor fashioned from the skeletal remains of a sea monster. Fact 12. The deadly green. In the Middle Ages, the hue associated with spring and hope frequently transformed into the color of a swift and silent death. To achieve that intensely saturated green shade for the fabric, master craftsmen utilized a lethal concoction based on arsenic and copper. Envision a magnificent gown that glows under the candle's flame, yet with every single contact with the skin, it leaves behind an invisible trail of poison. Inhale that faint, sickly sweet aroma of garlic emanating from the folds of the fabric, the telltale scent of a hidden assassin. Arsenic seeped directly through the pores, triggering agonizing skin ulcers, rapid hair loss, and terrifying, uncontrollable bodily convulsions. A lady draped in an emerald gown appeared like a radiant forest nymph, yet in truth, she was wearing a poison shroud that slowly claimed her life and the lives of any who dared to touch her hand. Fact 13. The blood of the cauldrons and smooth skin. Excess body hair was loathed as a mark of animalistic nature, making depilation methods resemble forbidden alchemical rituals. Women brewed gruesome potions from quicklime, arsenic, and the blood of bats or frogs to strip away the hair from their bodies. Imagine that thick, violently bubbling cauldron and the acrid, biting smoke that sears your eyes as you lean over the brew. This searing mass was applied to the arms or legs, waiting in agony until it literally dissolved the hair, along with the very upper layer of the skin. Feel the sickening smell of scorched flesh and the unbearable, rhythmic pulsing of the chemical burns against your limbs. After such a horrific procedure, the skin remained smooth but was covered in angry red patches and agonizing burns that took months to heal, leaving behind lifelong scars as the price of natural purity. Fact 14. Gloves with the scent of death. Medieval Europe was a place of horrific odors, where the stench of filthy streets mingled with the acrid aroma of tanned leather. To mask the pungent stench of urine and tar used in the manufacturing of accessories, these gloves were saturated with the most potent perfumes. However, there was a darker purpose. Gloves frequently served as sophisticated instruments for cold-blooded political assassinations. They were infused with toxins that were absorbed directly into the wearer's bloodstream through the moisture of their own sweat. Imagine that delicate fragrance of rose or citrus captivating your senses, even as your heart begins to beat with a slow, faltering rhythm. You touch your face, adjust your hair, utterly unaware that the luxurious gift has already initiated the final countdown of your life. Fact 15. The black gold of a smile. In an era when sugar was imported from distant lands and cost more than gold, decayed teeth became a hallmark of immense wealth. If your teeth were black with decay, it signaled that you could afford sweets every single day. Women blessed with naturally healthy white smiles felt impoverished and invisible. To rectify this, they deliberately rubbed their teeth with charcoal or special mixtures to mimic decay. Feel that abrasive crunch of grit and the bitter taste of ash in your mouth. It was a savage paradox, where the agony of inflamed gums and rot was heralded as a mark of the elite, while a healthy smile was branded as a sign of poverty. Fact 16. The morning freshness of ammonia. Imagine your day beginning, not with coffee, but with a deep rinse of your mouth using fresh urine. It sounds repulsive, yet for a medieval lady, ammonia was the only effective tooth whitener. Feel that sharp, acrid stench and the salty sting burning through your gums. People sincerely believed this fluid killed bacteria and bestowed a pearly radiance. Every swallow was a trial for the stomach, but the dread of yellow teeth far outweighed the revulsion. This was a clandestine morning ritual, concealed behind heavy bed hangings, in the desperate hope that a lover's kiss would not betray the true origin of such a dazzling smile. Fact 17. Pig lard and nightly guests. As hairstyles began to ascend to staggering heights, ordinary hairpins were no longer sufficient to hold the structure in place. Pig lard became the ultimate solution. Imagine thick, viscous grease being massaged into your tresses to sculpt them into an immovable, towering monument. The problem lay in the scent, which attracted uninvited guests. At night, as the lady slept in a specialized chair to preserve the masterpiece, she would hear a faint, rhythmic scratching. These were mice and rats, crawling directly into her hair to feast upon the lard. Feel that visceral, cold terror as tiny, sharp paws brush against your skin. And yet you dare not move a single muscle, for fear of destroying your ruinously expensive beauty. Fact 18. The silhouette of feigned fertility. In the Middle Ages, the ideal female form would appear profoundly strange to the modern eye. Women strived for a protruding abdomen, a shape that served as a powerful symbol of fertility and immense wealth. Even if the lady was not with child, she would utilize specialized padding, meticulously tucked beneath the weight of her heavy gown. Visualize the oppressive weight of that excess wool and the relentless discomfort caused by the constant pressure on the hips. This forced the wearer to adopt a slow, waddling gait. Feel the painful curvature of your spine as it struggles to counterbalance this artificial volume. Beauty demanded more than mere sacrifice. It required a total transformation of the body into a form that promised the continuation of the lineage. Even if that promise was not but a grand illusion, conjured through the artifice of countless layers of cloth. Fact 19. The living shield against parasites. The stench of unwashed bodies and squalid streets was a constant companion to every beauty. Yet the true plague was the flea. To divert the attention of these parasites, noble ladies wore the pelts of sables or martens upon their shoulders, complete with ornate golden muzzles. Feel that incessant itch, and the skittering of tiny legs moving deep within the high collar of your gown. It was a refined game of survival, where a luxurious accessory served not merely as a symbol of status, but as a primary shield in the war against bloodsuckers. Fact 20. The bloody pigment of insects. To ensure their lips radiated a deep crimson, medieval women utilized a paint meticulously crafted from crushed insects. Visualize thousands of tiny cochineal beetles being pulverized into a dense powder beneath the relentless weight of a heavy metal pestle. This pigment was blended with animal fat and smeared onto the lips, accompanied by the distinct and pungent aroma of raw meat and crushed insects. Feel this oily substance congealing upon your skin, manifesting the haunting and visceral illusion of fresh blood. It was the color of passion and transgression, which the church frequently condemned as a deceptive and diabolical lure. Fact 21. The courtesans. Stilts. Imagine gazing upon the world from a height of 50 centimeters, perched precariously atop massive wooden platforms known as chopines. Feel the agonizing strain as your leg muscles tighten to the point of pain, desperate to maintain balance upon these narrow, treacherous blocks. A woman was rendered incapable of walking unaided. She required the constant support of two servants, who gripped her firmly by the elbows. Every single step carried the mortal risk of a shattered ankle or a humiliating plunge face first into the street's filth. This was footwear that transformed a woman into a living statue, stripping her of the very ability to move independently. Do you hear that heavy thud of wood against stone? It is the sound of status, rendering you a captive of your own footwear, bound to the hands of servants for a mere illusion of grandeur. Fact 22. The golden louse comb. Beneath magnificent wigs and intricate hairstyles, a completely different parasitic life thrived in the shadows. Even queens, in all their golden splendor, were not spared from the relentless, maddening bites of common lice. Picture an exquisite comb of pure gold or carved ivory, encrusted with precious gems, serving a purpose far from its outward beauty. Feel those sharp tines scraping against the scalp, ruthlessly combing out the vermin directly onto the shimmering silk of a royal quilt. It was a daily, intimate ritual, a surreal moment where unimaginable luxury met the visceral reality of squalor. The itching was so insufferable that ladies wielded specialized, long-reaching sticks to scratch their scalps without toppling their monumental hairstyles. The brilliance of diamonds was often accompanied by the subtle, sickening rustle of thousands of creatures sharing the beds of the world's most powerful women. Fact 23. Saffron flame hair. Every lady yearned for a hair color that rivaled the radiance of molten gold. To achieve this, they utilized the most expensive spice in the world, saffron. Imagine hundreds of delicate blossoms being pulverized into a mere handful of vibrant orange dust. It was blended with precious oils and applied liberally to the hair, which was then bound tightly in fabric for the entire duration of the night. Inhale that oppressive, sickly sweet aroma, a scent so heavy it causes the head to spin and the stomach to churn with nausea. Saffron left a vivid, indelible mark not only upon the tresses, but on the hands, the face, and the very pillows, staining the world in the hue of the scorching sun. It was an exorbitantly expensive illusion, one that vanished with the first rainfall, leaving nothing but unsightly yellow blotches on the skin and an utterly empty purse. Fact 24. The linen shield of purity. In a world where outer garments of velvet and fur were never laundered for years on end, the sole salvation was the chemise, a thin linen shirt. Imagine that coarse fabric absorbing every drop of sweat and body oil, turning ashen and heavy against the skin. Women firmly believed that linen possessed a magical quality, capable of drawing diseases out of the body. Thus, they wore it without removal for weeks on end. experienced that pungent, acidic scent of a neglected body, an odor they desperately attempted to drown out with small pouches of dried lavender. Purity was nothing more than a single layer of fabric, the only thing separating delicate skin from the filthy, unwashed luxury of a heavy gown. When the chemise was finally removed, it was so saturated with grease that it had to be boiled in lye for hours just to restore even a semblance of whiteness. Fact 25. The heavy role of endurance. At the close of the Middle Ages, massive head rolls resembling horns or gigantic ring-shaped cushions surged into fashion. These headpieces were stuffed with raw sheep's wool or even desiccated moss to bestow upon them an incredible, unnatural volume. Imagine the crushing weight of this accessory, relentlessly pressing upon the crown and inciting a dull, aching agony in the neck and spine. Feel your every movement become restricted, for even a single sharp turn of the head could send this entire construction crashing to the floor. The moss within often became a nesting ground for spiders and various small insects. You pace through the hall maintaining a spine as straight and rigid as a taut string, while a kilogram of wool and dust rests upon your head adorned with pearls concealing the true price of your majestic posture. Fact 26. Pigeon fertilizer for the face. Imagine the evening twilight in a castle where a noble lady prepares for sleep by applying a thick, warm mash of pigeon droppings to her face. Feel that sharp, suffocating stench of ammonia that sears your eyes and catches in your throat. Medieval women firmly believed that avian excrement possessed incredible power to bleach the skin and dissolve pigment spots. You feel this substance drying upon your skin, constricting your face in a deathly, suffocating grip. It was a daily degradation of dignity for the sake of a spectral ideal, where beauty quite literally sprouted from the muck and filth. Morning washing brought a brief respite, but the skin ravaged by aggressive salts turned as thin and fragile as parchment, leaving it vulnerable to any infection. Fact 27. The sweet poison of arsenic wafers. For those unwilling to wait for the results of masks, there existed a swifter, yet far more perilous path: the internal consumption of arsenic. Refined ladies would purchase specialized wafers, each one deeply infused with this lethal and silent poison. Experience that sickly sweet, almost pleasant flavor upon your tongue, followed by the cold, metallic aftertaste of inevitable doom. The arsenic decimated the red blood cells, inducing an artificial anemia that bestowed the face with that coveted ghostly transparency and an alabaster hue, but the price was harrowing. The heart began to falter and skip beats, while hair fell out in thick, tragic clumps. And in the mirror, instead of a beauty, a living shadow emerged with a hollow gaze, her days numbered by her own desperate thirst for perfection. Fact 28. Bone cages for hair. When hairstyles grew so immense they resembled architectural monuments, natural hair could no longer sustain the form. Iron rods and animal bone frames were deployed. Imagine the sound of a dry creak as the heavy construction bites into your very skull. Feel the chill of metal pressing against your scalp beneath layers of someone else's hair. Such a structure weighed several kilograms, turning cervical vertebrae into crushed fragments. Women could not tilt their heads to drink water and were forced to sleep upon rigid wooden supports. It was a voluntary immobility, where a woman's head became a prison, adorned with ribbons and pearls, slowly but surely breaking her spine. Fact 29. Cinnabar and the mercurial flame. In the Middle Ages, those vibrant crimson cheeks were often the deadly result of using cinnabar, a mineral saturated with toxic mercury. Visualize yourself rubbing this saturated red powder onto your face, feeling a faint sting that rapidly intensifies into an agonizing, unbearable internal heat. Feel the relentless itch take hold as painful, weeping ulcers erupt on the very spots where you once sought a healthy, rosy glow. This was a color that could never be washed away, for the mercury seeped deep into the tissues, silently poisoning the brain and the lungs. You offer a polite smile to your guests, utterly unaware that your body is already being consumed by the invisible flame of the toxic metal. Every such application of makeup was a deliberate step toward madness and premature death, elegantly wrapped in a beautiful veil of crimson pigment. Fact 30. Hair of the dead and the cold of the grave. To achieve staggering hair volume, ladies frequently utilized hairpieces. But where did they find such quantities? The answer was grim, in cemeteries and morgues. Imagine yourself braiding into your own tresses the very strands that only yesterday belonged to a soul claimed by the plague or starvation. Feel that frigid, alien touch upon your nape, and the subtle, lingering scent of damp rot that no perfume, however potent, can truly mask. Along with the hair of the deceased, infectious diseases and swarms of parasites were often welcomed into the very heart of the home. You gaze at your reflection, beholding a magnificent mane, yet in truth, you bear the remains of the dead, an inseparable companion haunting the world of the living. Fact 31. The acid rebirth. Imagine applying a caustic mixture of cream of tartar and quicklime directly to your face. This was the medieval chemical peel. Feel your skin literally begin to melt away as an all-consuming, searing fire engulfs your entire face. Hear the faint, lethal hiss as the acid erodes the upper layer of your epidermis, falsely promising a new, infantile complexion beneath. But instead of the promised youthful freshness, women often received nothing but deep, agonizing ulcers and permanent, unbearable scars. The entire face would transform into a single, continuous wound, weeping lymph fluid for weeks as the body struggled to heal. It was a desperate gamble with one's own flesh, where the ultimate stake was the smoothness of the skin, and the losing hand meant a face disfigured for life, forced to be concealed behind heavy veils until the very moment of burial. Fact 32. The bloody cleansing of the devil. Every mole or wart on a woman's body could serve as her death warrant, for they were reviled as marks of the devil himself. To evade the flames of the Inquisition, beauties would ruthlessly cauterize these marks with searing, red-hot iron rods, or slice them away with razor-sharp blades, enduring the agony without a single drop of anesthetic. Imagine the sickening scent of scorched flesh and the freezing touch of cold metal against your bare, defenseless back. Feel that primal, animalistic terror surging through your veins and pulsing violently within your temples. Blood flowed down the skin, leaving behind coarse, jagged scars, the horrific price paid for the right to be deemed pure in the eyes of God. Every woman bore the marks of these secret tortures, transforming her very body into a map of agony, just to survive a world ruled by fanaticism and paranoia. Fact 33. The living relic of death. At last, behold the quintessential lady of the age, the ultimate icon of artificial beauty. She is suffocated by her corset, blinded by the belladonna in her gaze, and barely capable of standing upon her towering showpiece. Her very skin is saturated with lethal lead, while her hair is but a borrowed crown from a woman long dead. Feel this cold, metallic breath of death emanating from every single fold of her garments. This is no longer a living human being, but a majestic, opulent coffin, crafted for her own soul. She has been elevated to an icon to be worshipped, yet within this hollow shell remains only agony and an infinite, weary fatigue. Every movement is a heroic feat of will, every single gaze a direct and defiant challenge to nature itself. This was the finale of a story where feminine beauty became the most refined form of execution the world ever devised for the sake of aesthetics. We have traveled through centuries of pain and illusion. These 33 facts are merely the tip of the iceberg of our history. Be careful with your desires, because ideals change while life remains the highest value. Today we witnessed how the pursuit of perfection transformed into a form of torture. Subscribe to the channel so you do not miss the next 33 facts about our strange past.